Historical accuracy versus gameplay. One of the biggest debates when it comes to Total War historical titles lately, and the cause of possibly the largest split right now in the community. Strong opinions on either side. Now, in the world of opinions, nobody is really right. People prefer different things, but what I will say is this. I am a god and so I am right every single... Nah. I have done a few surveys on this matter. I can say that the majority of people vote for gameplay. But when the comments were opened up, it was clear that there's difference between what one person's perspective on historical accuracy is as opposed to another. This became very clear on my Discord. A vast majority of people who voted that they prefer historical accuracy would later vote for more inaccurate games as being their favourites and the ones they play the most. Rome 1 over Rome 2 and Barbarian Invasion over Attila. So why are the people who vote saying they prefer historical accuracy later voting for inaccurate games? Well, as said earlier, people's perspectives on what historical accuracy means differs. After reading many comments and then adding hours of thought at night during my yoga and whilst pooping, I have concluded with this. There's two types. There's the historical realism and the historical interactivity fans. Realism being the look and feel of the game. Are the battles violent and gritty enough? Do the troops look accurate? Are there enough factions to represent all the different Gallic tribes? Are units historically balanced? Or do you have some special OP phalanxes that melt everything? This is the historical approach Rome 2 went with over Rome 1, and some people loved this. But why did so many vote pro-historical accuracy, yet also prefer Rome 1? Well, it's because I feel Rome 1 did so much better with the historical interactivity. In Rome 2, exterminate a bunch of settlements and you get XP, which you invest to become an admiral. In Rome 1, this would actually give you traits and retinue dedicated to your actions. There is a bit of it here and there in Rome 2, but nowhere near the original scale. In Medieval 2, you get gunpowder at a fixed historical time. In newer titles, technology is done through a tech tree. This does give the player more customization, but in opening it up like this, tech becomes much weaker, as the player can focus down certain paths, ignoring others. It becomes just a series of 2% modifiers over any actually big game-changing event. You also get hordes that spawn at historically accurate times. In new historical titles, you get very little of the sort. Of course though, I am taking technology into consideration. In the old ones they were limited with staff, funds and possibility, yet still pulled it off. Now they do not have those limitations. They still make good, interesting additions, but no way are they fully optimising their own potential, or even getting close. In the old ones, you also got the Black Death, which spawned at an accurate time. In the new titles, you get nothing like this. Both new and old have city-based plague outbreaks, but whereas Medieval 2 has an extra historical one that spawns outside of the map and moves in for history, the new titles don't. So the players that vote and say they like historical accuracy and new titles are those who like realism, like that units are difficult to see because of camouflage, like that the length of the spear is perfectly accurate, and like that it is balanced. Usually the type who plays with historical armies only. But those who say they want history, but still prefer Rome 1 and Medieval 2, from my conclusion, are those who like history to be interactive, through interesting and engaging events, not whether Russia is named Russia or Novgorod. So, for the next part of this video, I want to apply this to create a Medieval 3 or Rome 3 Total War that caters to both historical fans but is still a game deep down. Basically another Medieval 2. Let's talk Medieval 3. Now some historical accuracy would need to be added. Of course, more accurately named factions. No more United HRE or Spain, but loads of smaller nations alongside the larger ones, like England and France. With updated technology, this is now a possibility. I also think the unit options need a rework for these games. One as a general game version where units can have bright red uniforms, colour on the knights and maybe Byzantines in purple. And then a realism option where uniforms are much more toned down and realistic. This means many units will blend into the map, be difficult to see, and difficult to spot which unit is on whose faction. Or if you prefer gameplay, just flick the switch in options and everything stands out again, like it did in the old titles. And I really don't see this being too much work. If they prepare for it from the start, a basic recolouring of the units, made as they go, would not be too difficult for a company as large as CA. Then there needs to be balance. Should all units be historically perfect? Or should phalanxes be able to slaughter in choke points and cavalry destroy everything on a single impact? Well, again, they can do both. Like the Romance 2 records in Three Kingdoms, a small basic stat change would again be possible. One like the old titles, one like the new titles. The unrealistic version would instead focus a little more on the unit's strengths and weaknesses. Spearmen versus Spearmen get no change, yet maybe Spearmen versus Cav get a 25% modifier, or something along those lines. Okay, so those basic options I really think will please the gameplay fans and the historical realists. Two different modes that really are the same game, just with a stat change and a visual change. When you really look at it and compare it to what other titles have done before, it is extra work, but not too much, I don't think. So, what about those who like historical interactivity? And to start off with, I think the tech tree needs a massive rework. Currently, you just pick a tech and decide to focus down that route. But are you really telling me that if you focus on military upgrades, then nobody would ever discover any civil upgrades across your entire empire? And that you won't gain any tech from other nations? I think instead a bar that moves along a timeline would be better. The timeline would be accurately split between civic, military and industry, or something like that, and will slowly move along every turn and auto-unlock technologies. You can do small stuff also to increase the speed at which the timeline will move, like building academies, or maybe capturing a technologically advanced settlement. This will keep it historical, accurate, yet still interactive and fun. I really want to see the chance for a historical path to be carved out, and this is inspired from Paradox, especially EU4 mission trees. Now, you can play Rome in Rome 3 however you want. However, if you follow a historical path, you gain rewards. These would be a set of missions unique to every faction that reward historically accurate progress, giving the player a reason to maybe focus on history a little bit more and engage with history. But those boosts that you get for completing missions, although great fun and interesting, should not be essential. And those who want to play Rome and go straight for the Germans first should be allowed to. But imagine this. If I take control over Sicily as Rome, then Carthage will automatically offer a peace deal including Sardinia and Corsica, to go into my hands. Later, after following on that path, secure Cleopatra onto her throne in Egypt, and you get an immediate vassalage onto the Egyptians, which will open up another mission, where you could annex them later, which will provide a massive wealth boost in the city of Rome. Again, all of this is historically accurate, but you can go at them in your own pace, and in your own way, or avoid them completely. So it is, deep down, still a game, not a simulation of clicking these buttons here in order. Or as Carthage, if you invade Italy through the Alps, let's say a mission where you can take a couple of northern Italian settlements, then you get the reward of surprise, and the Romans in Italy get minus 10% morale for 10 turns. Then maybe a mission of defeat a full Roman stack, which results in unrest across the Roman Empire, and so on. This somewhat does exist, but having it be more impactful, historical, and predictable, as you can see ahead and see what they unlock later down the line, would be perfect in my opinion. This should be combined with formable nations that come with benefits of their own. Just imagine playing Macedon, and you see your mission tree following a reclaiming route. Not historical militarily, but historical in ambition. A general would want to achieve that route, and that can teach about history also. Just imagine then being able to reform Alexander's empire as one of his successor factions, and getting benefits from that, such as increased unity across the empire or a larger tax rate, something that could historically be rewarded to that emperor. In addition, historical references and mechanics should be in play, like in Warhammer, but based off something real. Imagine if one element of playing Rome was the grain trade. You have grain coming in from other nations you have trade with. You can invest more money per turn to get more grain, maybe even stockpile. Over time though, your people consume it. The larger the empire, the more grain you consume. However, you can take places that are good at producing grain, like Sardinia and Sicily I believe, which will be auto-grain, auto-generate it for you. Unlike in Rome 2 where a few farms here and there is enough to feed everybody. I really want to see a Rome that is reliant on Egypt, so you cannot just go to war with Egypt and conquer their territory, as that would cut off the food for too long in Rome. Instead, you have to take them by other means, diplomatically, or at least have a large enough stockpile first and trade elsewhere, so it wouldn't be too hard of a hit. Not like in Rome 2, where the terrain had no effect at all, or where the spy can steal enough bread from a Gallic faction to feed all of Rome, single-handedly. What I want to see is a game that is a game. That is fun, but embraces history and uses it. Turns history into something that is interactive. Something that I want to read more into, to gain an advantage. Not something that is put there for the sake of having it there, or just as a block of text with no meaning at all. Total War is in a very good position, but they are not utilising their full potential. I want to see history flow with the game, like an art, not forced in for the sake of claiming a historical connection with the game. It has to flow with the game. Anyway, those are my thoughts. I want to make it clear. When people say they want gameplay, that does not mean they are Warhammer fans only who hate historical titles. When people say they like historical accuracy more, that does not mean they can be defined so easily as wanting a game that is not a game. I think the community needs to know this, and CA needs to know what we mean when we say that we want historical accuracy. We are not all just talking about realism, and a few factions with accurate names and stuff like that. Many are talking about interactivity as well. Something that the old titles actually did very well, considering the time they were made. They went above and beyond back then, but now, with the historical titles, it feels the Creative Assembly are not utilising their full potential. They could do and be so much more. And with that, I have been Melkor, and I hope you enjoyed. Hope you learnt something. Subscribe for more, share with anyone you think may be interested. Check out my Patreon also, and big thank you to Patreons General Rombo and Pyrrhus the Great for their support. But yeah, hope you enjoyed, and I will see you all in the next one, tomorrow's video, but for now, goodbye.